beginning.
Okay, hit record.
Oh my,
Okay.
that was juicy.
Hmm.
Already so much juiciness just from get preparing and getting ready to deliver this series. Women's Winter Work. I'm Nicole Hartley Bradford. This is Paula Clausen. This is Taylor. And Paula and I invited Taylor to ask questions about the series so that anyone out there, kind of like a way more fun way of doing a Q&A or a FAQ, frequently asked questions. And it doesn't really need to be question and answer. It can be more of what we've been doing. I was just saying how much I'm looking forward to having a container that I'm part of to get really devoted and clear with like with sisters, because I stopped bleeding about 4 or 5 years ago, and so I don't have that obvious sign of where I was like, okay, this is day one. I can count from here. Uh, and I love how we started in our check-in with, okay, this is where I'm in my cycle. On a day where I had been thinking, I wonder if I would be bleeding right now if I still bled, because there were indicators that it might be that those chambers and that, Paul, I got this new way of talking about it from you during the retreat in August. Got just so turned on about, in a way, going back to mapping and tracking my cycle. But I think there's so much more information that you're bringing, Paula, that it would be a completely different experience.
Mm.
And of course, when I did it before, it was really focused on either on avoiding pregnancy, which I didn't do very successfully.
Mm.
A whole nother conversation.
So many hour denouement.
Yes. Okay, so I'll stop talking for a little bit. We're gonna do our best to keep it to like a half hour. Who has something to say?
What does the time say?
I didn't get off to a great start being timekeeper. I apologize. But I think that we have about, I'm going to say 17 more minutes.
The first question that came up is like, yeah, well, how do we, keep up with the trajectory of launching an event and this series when how do we choose these times? How are you guys doing that? And just thinking of, I was like, well, I'm about to bleed. I should do nothing. I just want to leak all over everything. Like, is this a good time? And just how do you kind of keep up with a series, but hold whatever part of your cycle you're in? I guess the question is somewhere in there, like, and how are you choosing now? How does like the bigger wave of this all, uh, how are you launching this, and how did you know that now is the time?
What I'm noticing is this beautiful piece of consequence, of showing up as a person of consequence, and just even with this idea of launching, and as I was sharing before, I'm a 28-day cycle. I'm pretty I can come to rely on that familiarity, and I'm literally in this launch, and I'm waiting. Like I feel like I've been launched into the cosmos, and I'm waiting for this bleed. And I'm at the end of my bleeding years. And so there's this juicy, yeah, there's just this juicy timeliness of going like, wow, like Nicole and I spoke this and and there was a consequence that happened that I'm actually feeling in my energetic body. Like I'm feeling the, the potential of like, wow, like I get to do this with other women. I'm feeling the tension in my belly. Like I'm feeling physically like activated and alive and juicy in just how it's physically appearing in my body. Um, so yeah, I'm just really with this whole thing of just being able to be like, yeah, now's the time. And and I'm and I think there's something too with this with these years of tracking the cycle, whereas yeah, once it would have been really important to be in the cave. Um, for most of my bleeding years, I've done it in a very quiet, private way. And there's just so much excitement that I have about, wow, I get to, this is one of the first times I've been interviewed, and this exposure, I just feel like, well, yeah, this is the consequence too of all of these years of cycling and the musculature that I have to, I'm in the wobble of exposure, and there's some musculature too. So yeah, like as a it's there's this timeliness that I'm really with. I'm really, and again, cycle time has a way of, yeah, just circling back and touching into these things again and again.
And
I kind of have this follow-up of like, how do you navigate it? From what I've read, I'm into cycle awareness and cycle tracking and being like the new moon and when you're bleeding, that is the time to not be doing. Like that is the time to be harvesting and germinating. And so to yeah, this kind of feels like launching in some way. It's a small launch, but how do you keep on like how do you almost justify it? I'm like, shouldn't we all be in bed right now? How do we keep? Why do we have to keep on working?
Mhm.
well, yeah, I mean that's really what happens in modern culture is like women, put their tampon up there and their panty liner or whatever, their cup, or and they pop a few Advil and off they go. And nobody knows. Except maybe a few close friends and their partner who's like, oh yeah, she was really bitchy the last few days. This is not the life I want for women.
Mhm.
And I've discovered that it doesn't need to be that way. That and in the series, this I think this is something I want to make really clear is come as you are. Like
Mhm.
if you're in bed, if you need to be in bed, bring your computer to bed with you. Bring
Yes.
your hot water bottle, bring your heating pad, bring your coziest stuff. You don't need makeup. This is not the looking good team. This is the learning team. This is the team where we let ourselves be the mess that we are when we're a mess,
Yeah.
still with each other.
Yes.
And it doesn't come from nowhere. Paula, you've been tracking your cycle for for
20
so
years.
long, for 20 years. And I mean, I tracked my cycle kind of back then too, but not how I saw you do it. I remember so distinctly coming to visit you one day, going to the bathroom, and your calendar was right there beside the toilet. And I just looked at it and I was like, it wasn't just like day one, day two, day three, I'm going to bleed this day and I'm ovulating that. No, it was like there were little notes in there. It's like, oh, you were really studying yourself. And so you bring all this wisdom, and I really saw it during the retreat. I was just like, whoa, there's so much more to this than I even knew from glimpsing your calendar back then. And how it weaves so incredibly with also the dream work that you've done. And so, again, I've dabbled in that. And you've held space for me to unfold through some doorways that I'll never forget being on your porch that time, starting to speak my dream, and your questions and the whole world was like part of it. The way the wind blowed, the way a police car went by, the way a school bus went by, it was like, is this for real? It was so magical and also inevitable. And then these past this past year and a bit since you created for yourself the mother graduation, and that you asked me to be alongside of you as a you know the the mother who had created her own mother graduation. You came to it, like you were there, you traveled in person to be there. And somehow these like weavings along with you coming for different emotional healing process space holding work with me, it just seemed like we've been getting closer and closer. We've been doing the work in parallel, closer and closer.
Yeah.
And I think really the mother graduation that we both took ourselves through and gave for ourselves tipped us forward into something that I'm hearing myself say this, because mother graduation, the question is, what is your next job from Gaia? And it was hard to see, I think, in a way, because we already had been doing it, both of us, each in our own specialties, for so long. It was just normal to us. But to see it as a specialty, and then to start to see it as specialties that weave together.
Hmm.
And when you told me about how you had started booking emotional healing processes on certain days, chambers of your cycle, I was just like, and then as this unfolded during the summer, and then what did I go do next? I went and hung out with a friend while she had surgery to get her womb removed, because her womb and her doctor, her surgeon, said to her afterwards, your uterus looked so angry. And I just thought, wow, what if she had had access to, had spaces for, had spaces with other women doing conscious feelings work? What consequence might that have had on her physiology? And yeah, as I said, I stopped bleeding about 4 or 5 years ago. It was around the time that I started really intensively doing conscious feelings work, had a lot of emotional healing processes, and menopause happened like so invisibly.
Mm.
I don't know how it would have been if I hadn't been doing, you know, I'd say 2 to 4 to 5 processes a week. And sometimes when I was in training spaces, doing 3 or 4 or 5 a day for 5 days. I think it had a consequence in my physiology. Plus, I just want to do this work with more women. I'm so glad you're coming, Taylor. And there have been
Yes.
Me too.
a couple of other women already sign up too. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a dream come true. Another thing that happened at the retreat in August was one of the women brought the book, The Red Tent. I don't, I'm not, I'm scared to say the author's name in case I butcher it, but actually I have a copy right there. And I remember reading it. I remember first hearing about the Red Tent, and some women were putting on a Red Tent event. It's basically a kind of gathering with lots of midwives and doulas and you know uh, breastfeeding support people, local mother care people, postpartum education. They were placenta pills had just started being made more openly. And there was this one room downstairs where they draped it with red like a Bedouin tent and just said, come in, tell your stories. And it was so nourishing. And then reading the red tent, reading the historical, like that was part of their every month, every day reality. Okay, I'm up for getting closer to that. and getting closer to women, and especially breaking out of the subtle wars between women.
Yes. Yeah. This beautiful piece that the pieces that you were bringing in, Nicole, about being the alchemy that happens when we are witnessed, and as having this the cycle bodies, being able to be in a cycling body means that these our female bodies are designed to be in a continual flux of change. And the potency of being witnessed when you are undergoing change is so, so magical. And at the beginning, I was speaking about and Taylor, you were speaking about like the new moon piece and the going inward. Yes. Like when we feel like when we're saying no to the external demands of, like again, being able to gear down, being able to go internally, and then and there's something beautiful about gathering in that, in that containership of being witnessed, that, I mean, it was life-changing for me in the journey you and I took, and Taylor, you were part of that, but that regularity of being able to share exactly how it's going in the moment. Like that was being in the messiness of change, and allowing others to bear witness to it. There's something like a journal can't capture that.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that we were speaking to about, yes, this tracking that happened, and the documentation piece of it, but it just gets something else happens. It's not even, it's amplification, and actually something transformative happens in the company of others. And that's really women's winter work. And I would take that word work, like this isn't I would use this like almost like it's more akin to labor,
Mm.
like making sounds and like being in the struggle together, and having other voices come in, and humming all of that, just like I really see this as being such a big part of the time. I imagine the time of us spending together, that it can all be revealed, and like again, welcoming women exactly as they are in any part of their lives that they are. And there's something beautiful when we just get really honest and truthful about how it really is going.
We have only 2 or 3 more minutes.
Oh, wow. Well, it feels like we've touched a bit on why work, why women, why winter, and and I guess that maybe one logistics I feel like we can find online, but I wonder a question would be what can one really you've painted a picture, it's like a little abstract, but what can be expected of the flow of our meetings?
Mm. I mean, in the simplest way, it's the cohorts are Sunday and Thursday every 2 weeks. And in the weeks between, there will be there will be invitations to go to other spaces to do especially some of the conscious feelings work. And then there will be some way where we'll be communicating through anyone can get the impulse to send a message. It'll probably be an email thread. Um, it'll depend on the women who are in each cohort. What technologies do they use? But it's like want it to be that yeah, there's a 2 hour call every other week, and that's a place to come as you are. And I really want it to be about like what are the questions you're really working with you're weaving with, you're laboring with, walking with, and in a way be on each other's team to be asking the most empowering questions. And and some women might want to focus more on the the, the cycle tracking. Others might want to focus more on the dream part. Others might want to focus more on the conscious feelings work. Great, because we're all dreaming, we're all cycling, and we're all feeling. And how to do that more and more effectively, more and more responsibly. And this shift into kind of more higher levels, more skilled levels of responsibility, this is the part that I'm super excited about too, because that's the part where the women each go back into their own lives, their work, their relational spaces, their families, their partnerships, and maybe bring something that they could never bring before
Mm.
because of being together.
Sounds fun.
I think it's going to be so fun. I mean,
Is there any,
we're going to be together once every 2 weeks, like 3 months. It's already fun.
yes. Paula, was there anything you wanted to add to the logistical execution of such 2 hour calls, how they might look?
Oh, just yeah, echoing this just wholehearted invitation to join. And I am so excited to start bleeding.
We want that for you.
It reminds
Please,
me so much of
please.
it reminds me so much of when I would be into the 30s in my days, and I'd be like, "Am I bleeding now? Am I
Yeah,
bleeding now?
I
Am I
know.
bleeding now? What else is going on? Doesn't matter. Am I bleeding now?"
And we all can imagine that stress is not helping the the cause of bleeding. She'll come when she comes.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I was like, "Oh, never mind. I'll watch a movie." All of a sudden,
I always choose to play guitar, and usually I cry a bit, and then she comes.
yeah, the chamber of surrender's in there somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you. And it felt the unexpected joy to it always is to see how the nonlinear nonlinear way of just coming together and discussing. I appreciate it so.
Mm. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you for being here with us and doing this with us.
Mhm. I
Mm.
feel the darkness has enveloped now. It's retreating time. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish you both delicious, delicious evenings, delicious bleeding.
Mhm.
Assuming you will, Paul. I remember I missed a few periods when I started
I
getting
know.
into that
Yeah.
part. Maybe that's starting.
Something's been launched.
Yeah. Great. And I'll put this out there so that other women can watch it if they're on the fence, if they're curious. I also just want to bring in this that I highly recommend. I've been highly recommending to the women who signed up already, to the women who are considering signing up. I highly recommend bringing the women who are close to you in your life,
Mm,
and or women who you want to be close with, because I think this
mm,
will really be a space of creating closeness and building our skills for being close. And sometimes it's being close and in my own little cave, my own little cocoon. But how to do that without isolating, I think is
yes.
one of the things I'm really interested in exploring and practicing.
Beautiful.
Okay, let's call it a wrap. Thank you.